Hey everyone, welcome back to KDX Bricks Analytics, where we talk everything Lego investing and reselling. And I've made a video for you that I've been looking forward to making for a very long time. As you know, I watch as many YouTube videos about Lego investing and reselling as I can find, well, the good ones at least, and I collect as much enthusiasm and mentions data as I can. I've been doing that for a couple of years now, so a big question we always have is, how good is this data? Does a bunch of mentions for a set help me make a really good investment? That's what we're going to find out in this video. Here's a teaser of some data that will deep dive. For example, sets that got 16 to 20 mentions have an average 25% return on investment if you picked the sets up at retail price, 56% return on investment if you got them 20% off, and 92% ROI if you got them 35% off. And notice this is eBay sales prices, but then I've got the same data for Amazon prices for all you Amazon sellers out there. And as you can see, the top line, the returns on investment are slightly higher. Here's another example. How did sets do with enthusiasm scores of 2 to 2.3, 16, 45, and 78%. And I even have bar charts that show you by set and which sets did really well in these categories and which sets are not doing so well. This is data on sets that retired in 2022, the retirement class that brought us the Clone Trooper Command Station, the Mandalorian Starfighter, Carnage, the Batman Classic TV series Batmobile, Demogorgon and 11 Brickheads from Stranger Things, 123 Sesame Street, the Star Wars Bad Batch Attack Shuttle, International Space Station, and so many more. How do I get my enthusiasm score and mentions data? Well, every video that I watch when the presenter mentions a set for investing and reselling, I record it as a mention on my raw data tables, and for each mention, I give it an enthusiasm score of 3, 2, 1, or 0. An E score of 3 means the presenter thinks it's a home run. An E score of 2 means the presenter thinks it is an average Lego investment. A 1 means the presenter thinks there's potential there but has some questions. And a 0 means the presenter is saying they are skipping that set for investing. And scrolling through my channel, you can see that most of my videos are covering that data. I try to update it monthly or so, but I do want to point out I have one video right here from 7 months ago where I did the exact same thing as I'm doing in this video. I looked at the sets that retired at the end of 2022 and ran the numbers to see if my metrics were any good. All right, so here's the first table to deep dive. We already looked at the top line for 16 to 20 mentions. I'm mostly looking in the 20% column with a little bit in the 35% column because the vast majority of the time we can pick these sets up at least 20% off equivalent, stacking sales and insider points and cashback and Rakuten and GWPs and other promos. But also many times we can get 35% off on a good chunk of sets. Some of the exclusives are harder to get 35% off, but I feel very confident that the middle 20% column is kind of worst case scenario return on investment. So next row for sets with 11 to 15 mentions, minus 7% at full price, but then 16% and 43%, 6 to 10 mentions, about the same as 11 to 15, minus 5, 18 and 46%, and then 1 to 5 mentions, it drops off a cliff, minus 17%, 4%, and 28%. Again, this table is for reselling on eBay, and then this table is the exact same data, but for reselling on Amazon. At a quick glance, you can see that the Amazon ROIs are a fair amount higher. If I go back and forth, we can see that the middle column is 68%, 42, 35, and 30, but on eBay, it's only 56, 16, 18, and 4%. I did start selling on Amazon a few months ago, and I find that to be pretty good. There are definitely some challenges, so there are pluses and minuses to both eBay and Amazon and Marketplace. So now let's look at the graphs by category. 16 to 20 mentions, set 40558, which is the Clone Trooper Command Station, has a 78% ROI on eBay. Demogorgon and 11 Brickheads has a 70% ROI. The Bad Batch Attack Shuttle, 61%. Great set. I picked up a few of these and I'm already starting to sell them. Awesome minifigures. And then this 15% set is the Mandalorian Starfighter. And please note, for all of the graphs, I am using that middle column, the 20% off column. So when I look at these graphs, I adjust these numbers up just slightly because on average, I'm getting sets for at least 30% off. Here are the sets in the 11 to 15 mentions range. With 6% ROI is the Armored Assault Tank. At only 7% is this 501st Clone Troopers kind of battle pack, but now we got a good one at 54%. The Armorer's Mandalorian Forge, I only got 2 of these and I'm keeping one for my own collection, so I'm just gonna sell one. This was a Target exclusive and I was asleep at the wheel. I should have picked up a lot more. The UCS Imperial Star Destroyer has a 32% ROI. That's pretty good for an all gray, large, expensive UCS Star Wars ship. And then the last two, 7% and -8%. The 7% is Boba Fett's helmet. Seems reasonable because I had a really long shelf life. And then the -8% is this Darth Vader meditation chamber. Too many sharp edges, too clunky. This was one that I was not excited about. With 6 to 10 mentions, there are a bunch of sets in this category. Most of them are in the positive ROI, with many of them above 20%. And then there's a few in the negative, with a couple that are pretty big losers. One of the big winners was this Batman Classic Batmobile, over 80% ROI. A pretty decent winner is this Batmobile tumbler, but the rumors are that another tumbler is coming out, I think at the beginning of 2025. That one's doing about 50% ROI. The International Space Station, I just sold one of these and did really well. It's an awesome set. Ideas, about 30% ROI. The Scout Trooper helmet, 50% ROI at 20% off. I didn't pick up any. I'm kicking myself because people were grabbing these. I even saw a few at 40 or 50% off. Carnage is okay at close to 50%, but it's a little bit disappointing because this one was a Target exclusive. If I recall, it was slow out of the gate, but it has gone up a little bit recently, and obviously the hope is that it continues to grow because it's a pretty good set. The Ford F-150 Raptor Technic set is about 40% ROI, and this is another one I'm kicking myself on because Walmart had these at $50, which was 50% off. What a steal. But it wasn't all ponies and ice cream. There definitely are a couple of losers in here. Set 10279, which is the Volkswagen T2 camper van. Pretty rough set. I heard that the build is a challenge. Parts of it kind of fall apart when you're building it, so it's pretty frustrating, but also it's just kind of ugly. I know it's not terrible compared to the source material, but not my thing. And then 75955 at almost -30% ROI. I'll give you a hint. It is a Harry Potter set, and it is the Hogwarts Express. This one fell off a cliff because soon after this one retired, Lego announced a new Hogwarts Express that was very similar and honestly a little better. And then here's the chart for 1 to 5 mentions. As expected, most of these are losers, with a couple of big ones that I'll highlight a little later. And then here are the same tables, but if you are selling on Amazon, in general, they're all a little bit higher. I won't go back and forth. You can pause and go compare if you would like, but like the 11 to 15 mentions, for example, there are some really good winners in here. This is the Armorer's Mandalorian Forge, 67%, and then the Boba Fett helmet jumps up to 32% when selling on Amazon. Similar story here with 6 to 10 mentions, only a couple are in the negatives on Amazon. And then with the sets that are 1 to 5 mentions, a lot more of them are in the positive. Now, before we go on to the next table, I want to show you how I calculated ROI and all of the expenses and taxes that I included in the calculation. So let's take Carnage, for example, a set that had an enthusiasm score of 2.8 with 6 mentions. On eBay, the current value is $95, not including shipping. So that's already subtracted out, but we also have to subtract out fees. So I did a standard 14%. So from $95 minus 14%, now we're down to $82. And please note, I collected this data over the last couple of weeks. Some things could change. Definitely mention anything of interest in the comments, but I had to pick a snapshot in time so that I could put all the data together and make this video, knowing that the prices are still fluctuating in some cases. All right, next column over. And again, this is my rough calculation in the background. I didn't make it all pretty for you. Current value less tax. I just did a flat 10%. That's probably a little bit high for some people, a little bit low for other people. I know everybody's in a different situation, but I at least wanted to put something in there to cover the cross section of all of the Lego investors out there. All right, so the final cash in pocket after subtracting out shipping, fees, and taxes is $73.50. And then the next column over is the recommended retail price. In this case, $60. I added a 5% sales tax to that. Some people who are LLCs have tax exempt at some of the retailers. Some of the retailers, you can't do it. I know some sales tax are as high as 11 or 12%. Some it's very low, 5%, just to have a good number in there. Next column over is if you bought it 20% off, in this case, $48, adding tax on $50.40. And then if you got it 35% off, $39.41 after taxes. And then of course, the next few columns are the 3 ROIs. So 17% if you paid full price, 46% ROI if you got it 20% off, or stacked promos to get equivalent to 20% off, and then 80% if you got it 35% off. I also added price per part and shelf life because I ran some tables on that we'll look at in a minute. Same exact calculation for the Amazon data, except the fees are 28%, and the shipping is accounted for as part of that 28% when you are selling on Amazon. So there's the calculation. Definitely wanted to point out that these calculations are tailored to the different platforms that we can sell on. And now the next table, which is very similar to the last, except it is enthusiasm score broken into categories. So all the sets that had enthusiasm scores of 2.7 to 3.0 had a 16% ROI if you picked it up at retail, 45% at 20% off, and then 79% at 35% off. Again, the first table is eBay prices. An E-score of 2.4 to 2.6 is a little lower, of course, minus 2%, 22, and 50. 2 to 2.3 is still decent, minus 5, 19%, and 46%. And anything below an E-score of 2, now we're looking like it should be a pass unless you get the 35 or even 50% discount. 1.6 to 1.9, you would need it 35% off to get a 28% ROI. An E-score of 0 to 1.5, you're looking at minus 5 to 10% even when you get a 20% off. Here's the same data, but if you're selling on Amazon, again, the values are much higher. So in this case, the sets that had E-scores of 1.6 to 1.9 averaged out to 16% ROI and 43% at 35% off the retail price. Obviously, we want to do much better than that, but sets that are 2 to 2.3 E-score are now doing really well on Amazon. I'll click back and forth for a second just so you can do a quick comparison. 9 sets on this bar chart that had E-scores of 2.7 to 3.0. We've already talked about many of these, but the Overlord Dragon has an ROI of 17% from Ninjago. Harry Potter Attack on the Burrow, a low 11%. Unique set, a lot of members on Brickset own it, so I'm a little bit surprised it's that low, but we all know that the Harry Potter theme is dying off in terms of demand, so not completely surprising. This 47% is the Chevy Corvette Speed Champions 2-pack. Not bad, but I know everybody was hoping it would do a lot better. Looking at the 2.4 to 2.6 E-score sets, now we're seeing some sets with some minus numbers. A couple of lowlights to look at are the UCS Batwing at minus 4% and Bro Thor's Asgard at minus 23%. Here are both of those. The similar Batmobile did so well, so I think a lot of people were discussing this one, hoping it would follow the same track, but it has not. And then Bro Thor's new Asgard has been a huge disappointment, and this is not one that I researched closely, so I'm not sure why. A bunch of sets with an E-score of 2.0 to 2.3. A couple of highlights are Fox Dumbledore's Phoenix at 50%. Here's a look at that set. Goes with the Hungarian Horntail and Hedwig and the wings flap. I definitely can see why this one's doing pretty well. Kind of like the helmet series of Harry Potter. Really unique, great display piece. And then the big one in this group is the Creator 3-in-1 Fish Tank. Brickset is showing $30 to $47. That's awesome. I knew it the second I saw this set and I decided to pick up 0. I can't believe I did that, but live and learn, and I keep on going. Here are the 9 sets with 1.6 to 1.9 enthusiasm score. One we haven't talked about so far with minus 16% ROI is this Batman cowl. I'm confused. I thought people like heads on sticks and masks on sticks, like this shadow on stick. It is weird having these characters and masks on pikes. I guess the cowl isn't so bad, but it looks awful. So it's minus 16% is not a surprise to me at all. And then on eBay, every set that had an E-score of 1.0 to 1.5 is losing money. The 2 lowlights are this Lunar New Year Ice Festival with minus 27%, and then minus 35% is another Harry Potter set. I'm sure many of you are already picturing this set that I'm going to show you, which is the Harry Potter and Hermione Granger large scale minifigures. $120 price point was insane, so I can see why this one's not doing well, but my son got this set and built it and he loves it. So for teenage kids that are really into the books, I think it's pretty good, but yeah, definitely a big pass for an investment. We all knew that. And then here are all the sets that got mentions against investing and reselling. That's why they have E-scores of 0. Most of them are in the negative as expected, but there's a couple of highlights. The Old Trafford Stadium, 31% ROI, very niche market, but of all the stadiums, this one by far is the coolest, so it makes sense. And then this 20% ROI is the Millennium Falcon Microfighter. Nothing too special, but glad to see another microfighter doing okay. And then here are the same charts when selling on Amazon. I'll just click through them. Feel free to pause the video and study them more closely. Here's the fish tank at 144% on Amazon. That is awesome. This is the Wolverine mech at 70%. I just sold, I think, 6 or 7 of those on Amazon in the last couple of months. Nothing too exciting here. And then the Millennium Falcon Microfighter at 93%. That seems shocking. Now let's look at performance by theme. And one really important note here, this table does not include every set in each theme that retired in 2022. Instead, it only includes the sets that got mentions in the videos that I watched. Sets did not get discussed at all. I didn't want to include them in my data because, again, my whole thing is I'm covering data on sets that are being discussed in the Lego investing community. Top of the list is Creator, 39, 74, and 114%. There's only 2 sets in here. It's the Crocodile and, of course, the Fish Tank, and we'll look at that in more detail in a second. In second place is the Brickheads with 25, 57, and 93% ROI. Ideas, pretty big drop off to -3% if you buy it at retail, and then 22 and 50%. And then DC, which typically outperforms Marvel, which is represented here, but still not great, so 20% in the middle column. Speed Champions, evergreen sets, 17%, 44%. I'm okay with that because I don't pick up Speed Champions unless they're at least 30% off, so now I'm probably in the 30% ROI range. And remember, there were a couple of really bad Speed Champions that retired at the end of 2022. It was like the Dragster, I think it was Dodge 2-pack, and then that blue convertible. Architecture, this used to be a great theme to invest in, but there aren't as many sets produced in the theme anymore, and it's lost a lot of its luster. Star Wars, 7th place on the table, only 12% on average, but that's skewed because this is the theme that has the most sets that get discussed for investing, and there are many sets that get low E-scores or enthusiasm scores, but they still get mentioned. And so when I'm careful about which Star Wars sets to pick, my ROI jumps up much higher. It'd almost be better if I purposely filtered out the obvious past sets in the Star Wars theme and then ran the numbers. Technic, hit or miss, 11% in the middle. City, most sets are passes. Some of the smaller $10 sets can double or triple in value. Here's Marvel, not doing well. Harry Potter, we talked about, this theme is losing popularity. Monkey Kid, a new theme, but not much demand in most of the world. Ninjago, some of the dragons do really well, but most of the sets don't. Disney, the occasional gem, but most of them are just repeats or aimed at really young ages. Art at -10% in the middle column. Icons, that's kind of surprising, at -15%. Jurassic World, makes sense, -25%, and then seasonal and brick sketches. To get to a minus ROI in the 20% column, we went to the Harry Potter theme. Here's the same data when selling on Amazon, and to get to minus, we have to go past Harry Potter all the way to brick sketches. The order is a little bit different. Creator, Brickheads, Ideas, DC are the same order and on top, but then Technic jumps up to 38% when selling on Amazon, and then Star Wars jumps up 1 spot from 7th to 6th, and then everything else is similar story with slightly higher ROIs. I'll flip back and forth so you can pause and look to compare that data. And now let's look at some bar charts. So like I said, the Creator ROI is a little skewed because all we talked about was the Fish Tank and the Crocodile. Brickheads, a lot of winners in here. As expected, surprisingly, the Voldemort, Bellatrix, and Nagini Harry Potter 3-pack is only 3% ROI. The Ginger Tabby is 176%. Here's what that set looks like. Insane. And that is the set I was referring to on that table. And then Koi Fish was the other one. Ideas, most of them have respectable ROIs other than Central Perk. DC, it's really hit or miss. We've already talked about a lot of these sets. Speed Champions, yeah, here we go. We only had the Corvette 2-pack, the McLaren Elva, and then the Dodge Dragster and Challenger 2-pack. Usually we have more Speed Champions retiring at the end of each year, and usually we don't have a high percentage of losers. So I think the low average Speed Champions ROI is a little bit skewed. Here's all the Star Wars sets, and like I said, if you filter out the obvious losers, then average ROI jumps way up. Like Trouble on Tatooine at -42%, obvious. The large brick built Yoda, obvious. This is the AT-AT verse, I forget, 2-pack Microfighter that was pretty junky, obvious. And then I remember many of these others that have minus or low ROIs were easy dumps for my hit list. So in the end, I'd be looking at all the sets that are 15% or higher and probably half of the 6 and 7% sets. Here's Marvel, mostly losers with the occasional gem. I want to highlight 40454. This was that $15 blister pack with 4 minifigures, the arm printing on it, Spider-Man, the Venomized Iron Man. This one was cool. I picked up, that says 3. I think I have 10 of these and I'm still waiting to sell them. But that one had a 60% ROI. We already talked about Carnage and Wolverine mech. Harry Potter, mostly losing sets. Fox was a unique one. And then, what was this one? 76387 at 73% ROI. I think that was Fluffy Encounter, if I remember right. Yeah, here we go. Fluffy Encounter. Super plain set, but you know, it's only the second time we've got the 3-headed fluffy dog. So that's a valuable chunk of pieces right there. All right, now let's look at shelf life. And this data is pretty much as expected. Short shelf life, higher ROIs. Less than a year, on average 24%, up to 53% if you got it 35% off. 1 to 1.5 years, -10%. 20% at retail, but then 13% in the middle column, and then 39% in the last column. 1.5 to 2 years, minus 16.5 and 29, and then 2 to 3 years, basically the same metrics, minus 16.5 to 30. And then notice that 3 to 4 years, it actually jumps up, and that's because there's those occasional larger sets that have a longer shelf life, but kind of fly under the radar, like the Coliseum. I forget how long that shelf life was, but when that one retired and jumped up, everybody was really surprised. So there's some unique, larger, expensive gems in the 3 to 4 year range. And then most of the time, greater than 4 years, it's a big, big risk. Same data for Amazon. As always, it has higher ROIs. So if we go back and forth, you can see some of these actually jump by, 50 to 80%. A couple more tables to show you. Here is comparing exclusive sets to non-exclusive. Exclusive would include Lego exclusive like Brickheads, Target exclusive like Carnage, Walmart exclusive, Amazon exclusive, maybe an occasional Kohl's exclusive. I forget what other retailers, but that covers most of it here in the US where I am. And not a huge difference, but as expected, the exclusives do a little better. So 9, 37, and 68%, and then non-exclusives are 5, 31, and 62%. One thing this does show you is that the average of all the sets that got positive mentions in 2022 worked out to about an average 35% ROI. And then last table is comparing the cheap sets to the expensive sets. $0 to $25 sets, 16, 45, and 79%. 25 to $50 sets, 18, 48, and 82%. Wow, those are great. I need to remember that. I know it's a lot of work to deal with the smaller sets, but once you do one listing on eBay and get the right box size, it's easy to package those up. Of course, if you're doing Amazon, then you can send in a bunch FBA. $50 to $100 is the second lowest category at minus 9, 13, and 39%. $100 to $150, pretty good. Middle column 27%, and then at 35% off is 56% ROI. $150 to $200, minus 9, 14, and 40%. And then any set over $200, minus 18, 2, and 26%. Seems a little surprising because some of the best sets are over $200. So maybe that comes in waves. Maybe, the sets that retired at the end of 2023 have a better expensive class of sets. Now, before we wrap up, I want to show you the best performing sets in ROI order, and I'll show you the worst performing sets. That was a comment the last time I did a video like this. The number one performing set from 2022 is this Brickheads Ginger Tabby. Middle column, 176% ROI. I'm looking at eBay prices for this table. Second place set is another kind of unusual Brickheads Koi Fish, 103%. And then third place is a more traditional Brickheads Lady Liberty at 84%. The community missed out on all three of these big time, just 1 or 2 mentions for each, so they flew way under the radar. But now with the fourth set on this table, we're getting into some with some pretty good mentions and e-scores. 76188, the classic TV series Batmobile. If I recall, this one was a Walmart exclusive. Correct me if I am wrong on that. 84% ROI center column. And then the Clone Trooper blister pack that we talked about earlier, 43, 78, 119% ROI, 17 mentions, e-score of 2.9. Remember, that e-score is out of 3.0, so that is almost a top mark. I think it was the highest e-score from all these sets. And then next up is our beloved Creator 3-in-1 fish tank, 43, 78, 119, only 3 mentions, so another one that flew way under the radar. And then also with Hogwarts Fluffy Encounter that we already looked at, only 2 mentions and an e-score of 2, but 73% ROI. Demogorgon and 11 doing pretty well, 17 mentions, e-score of 2.6. Brickheads aren't on sale nearly as often, so looking at the first column might be a little more accurate. So 36% ROI, 70% if you got a good GWP or insider points or happen to catch it on sale. So this one actually isn't performing quite as well as the community had hoped. And then the other Creator 3-in-1 Crocodile, only 1 mention, e-score of 2. This one was on sale all the time, 69% ROI if you got it for 20% off, and many people got it for a little more than 20% off. Now keep in mind, these sets haven't hit the 2-year post-retirement mark yet. They're, what is this? 1 year and 3 quarters, because Q4 just started for us. And with many more investors in this game and Lego producing many more copies of these sets, as I've said many times in the past, hold times are creeping up. Years ago, the hope was year to year and a half. I'm comfortable with 2 or even 2.5 years, but ideally my goal is to unload my sets in the second Q4 after retirement. So basically coming up real soon for a lot of these sets is my hope. That way my average hold time can be just under 2 years, but if a set hasn't hit a decent ROI yet, then I'll hold on to it for another year. Now to our first Star Wars set. So what place is this? this. 10th place. So we had to go all the way down to the 10th position to hit the first Star Wars set. 17 mentions, E-score 2.4, 61% ROI. Bad Batch Attack Shuttle, love it. Spider-Man versus Venom and the Iron Venom, we talked about this one, 60% center column. The other cat-related brickheads, this time only 28, 60, and 97% ROI. And then to our next very popular set, 14 mentions, E-score 2.6, The Armor's Mandalorian Forge, 54%, as we showed earlier in the charts and tables. The Batmobile Tumbler, 20%, 50%, 84%. We looked at Fox earlier, same ROIs. This one only had 4 mentions and a lower E-score of 2.3, so flying under the radar a little bit. Scout Trooper Helmet, what a steal this one was. 7 mentions, a low E-score of 2. We all missed the mark on this one. And then this cool Buzz Lightyear brickhead, not performing to what we were hoping for yet. 7 mentions, a high E-score of 2.6, and ROI somewhere between 18 and 47% since it was hard to get this one on sale. Chicken Hen House. This is one of those $10 city sets I've talked about in the past that can fly under the radar and do pretty well. Only 1 mention with an E-score of 1, but going up about 50% in value. We've already looked at the Corvette 2-pack, and then we've also already looked at Carnage. The rest of the sets have an ROI below 40% if you got them 20% off. I won't go through them all, but certainly pause and scan. The second version of the Apollo Saturn V, 38% ROI. This art set, Elvis, 38%. Only 1 mention, E-score of 1. It was on sale a lot, so people that pick those up on good discount are doing pretty well. International Space Station, only 32%, but it was discounted a fair amount. Seinfeld was 50% off a few times, better than 56% ROI if you pick some of those up. Here's the Mandalorian Starfighter all the way down here. Here's the Architecture Tokyo, not a very popular set. The annual $100 holiday set, the Elf Clubhouse, only 11% ROI. That one was not very popular, 1.8 enthusiasm score. All right, so now take a peek at the rest of these because we're going to go to the bottom of the table and I am going to show you the lowest performing sets and work our way up from the bottom. I'm not going to hit them all, just want to highlight some of them. First one is Trouble on Tatooine from Mandalorian, minus 28%, even if you got it 35% off. For a little while there, because of season 1 of Mando, the community felt like anything Mandalorian was a great investment, and there have been a couple. That Walker with the Cara Dune minifigure in it is doing terrible. This one's doing terrible, so now everybody's running for the hills from the Mandalorian sets. And the next one to highlight is the Hogwarts Clock Tower. 4 mentions, E-score 1.5, so yeah, nobody thought it was going to perform well, but it's not a terrible Harry Potter build and set. I know there's a lot of tan and gray buildings, so they all blend together, but this one performed poorly, mostly because it was out from 2019 to 2022. Pretty long shelf life. Attack on the Spider Lair, only 3 mentions, E-score 1.3, so it's performing as expected, but I do remember the occasional person saying it could do okay because of all of the Spider-Man related minifigures. So far, that has not come to fruition. And then the next one to look at is this Imperial Shuttle, 8 mentions, which is a good bit. A low 1.8 enthusiasm score, minus 26, minus 8, and 13. I feel like this is the 3rd or 4th Imperial Shuttle, but this one just did not catch on for some reason. Maybe it was a little too small and the minifigures are uninspiring. Darth Vader Meditation Chamber, we talked about this one. 11 mentions, E-score 2.4, and minus 26, minus 8, and minus 13. Imperial Light Cruiser, minus 26, minus 8, and 13%. The big reason is because this set, which has 1,336 pieces, was $160 back in 21 and 22. That was pretty rough when it comes to price to part ratio. And 6 minifigures, but only one of them was unique. And another big all gray Star Wars ship that we're all kind of tired of. Imperial Probe Droid, 9 mentions. That's pretty high. A low 1.4 enthusiasm score. Very poor performance. The Imperial Armored Marauder, 7 mentions, E-score of 2. Also a money losing set. And I kind of liked this one. The community got it right for the most part, but I was kind of wrong. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I thought it would have done better. Hogwarts First Flying Lesson, 7 mentions, E-score 2.3, and still minus 26, minus 8, and 13. I forget exactly what happened to this one. I forget if it got extended a year or if it went on sale with like 8 months to go in the year and then it just stayed on sale forever and there was so much supply. I remember that I picked up 4 of these from Amazon at a pretty good discount. I was really proud of it. And then fast forward to the end of that year and I realized, holy moly, they are everywhere, even on better discount. And so I knew that I had picked a loser at that point. The Armored Assault Tank, 15 mentions, E-score 2.3, so one of the highest mentioned sets on this list, and the ROIs aren't great, but I do remember you could get this one on a pretty good discount. The Overlord Dragon, Only 4 mentions, but a really high 2.8 enthusiasm score. Not a great ROI so far. The community got it right for the most part, but there were a few people out there that really liked it and they did not get it right. And then the last one to look at is 123 Sesame Street, 8 mentions, e-score at 2.5. With those metrics, you would be thinking 40 to 60% ROI, but it's only 19% in center column here. This one so far has been a huge disappointment. All right, that's a wrap. That was a lot of fun making this video. Really interesting data. At least I found it to be really interesting. I love running data, as you guys know. Definitely let me know in the comments if you see anything of interest or if you would like me to run some different metrics when I do a future video like this. I will be doing something similar on sets that retired at the end of 2023 here pretty soon. It'll be interesting to start comparing data and trends across these types of videos. Thanks a lot for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, and don't forget, my videos are for entertainment purposes only. I do not provide financial advice. You got to get that from somebody else.